Yeah, we saw here is a pile. So that's how you handle the manure. Could you please tell us a little bit like how you do the pile, how you maintain the pile?
Okay, yeah. So first of all, it comes out of the barn area and into this pile. We add as much carbon as we can because there's plenty of manure and nitrogen and everything in there. And so when it comes to turning this, it's in such a small area that it's pretty tricky. But what I do is with the bucket of the tractor, it kind of depends on where I'm at, but I'll kind of pull as much of the top and the drier parts of the compost down off, and then I'll maybe approach it from another angle and then flip the inner wetter stuff up on top of that. And while I'm doing it, I kind of drive on it and everything with the wheels of the tractor, kind of dig everything in and mash it together, and I just kind of stir it around as much as I can, while trying to be as efficient as possible, because it could take me all day to do this, but I'm trying to do it in an hour or two.
Right, I think that's like really great tip to share. I think that's amazing. I have one specific question for this year, because I heard Dr. Stock, she mentioned that you guys had like a drought for a while. It was like drier than usual. How do you keep the moisture? Did you add any water, or you think actually it was actually holding okay even after turning?
This thing was so wet when I first did it, because it was what came out in the spring. So I never added water to this.
Okay, actually it was good. When you squeeze, we don't have like anything come out, but still we can feel.
Yeah, there's a nice moisture.
We can feel the moisture, but there's like not excessive water comes out. So
it's like a wrung out sponge.
Right, this is just
perfect.
about perfect.
Yeah, and I would say it was too wet in the interior of the compost. It was anaerobic.
A little bit like you can smell the.
Yeah, and that's why you can smell it now, because I just turned this a few days ago.
Right, perfect.
And it wasn't exceptionally dry on the outside though. So I think it was just maintaining moisture.
That's great. I feel like the one we have a size like this is easier to manage, and you didn't have to add water, so that's good to know.
I did add water to the compost that were further finished, because they were drying out and not breaking down. They weren't working. They weren't in lot, so I did water those.
And so how often do you turn this? Would you add new material to this pile, or start a new pile when you have new material to add?
I try to turn it every couple months. More is better, but I actually realistically, I've only turned this once, and I took it out in the spring, so it took me like 3 months, maybe. Well, not quite 3, 2.5 months to finally get around to turning it. But if I can turn it during the summertime 2 to 3 times, I'm happy. And once I've turned it, I try not to add new material. So when I turned this one, the whole pile was more like, you can kind of see where it was. It was right here, and so when I turned it, everything kind of like ended up right there. And so now I'm adding compost right here for the next batch, and then this will keep moving, and then that's an issue right now, is space. So I'm considering composting in a different area, or at least finishing composting, so that we can keep the system moving.
So when you clean everything out in the spring and then turn every couple of months, about how long does it take to have the finished product that you'd be comfortable spreading on crops or otherwise?
Probably the following year.
Yeah.
And I was pushing it when we first started out, using stuff when it wasn't quite finished, because I just needed material.
Right.
But I put it like more in the paths of the garden rather than in the beds, and it would kind of compost in place. And one thing that we do in our beds and our bed flipping is we pull up the path material and put it in the beds, because we try not to disturb the soil, try not to till. But we do, we stir up the paths and bring it in, and it always ends up with this pretty nice consistency.